Okay, this will be part two, the little mini series that I'm gonna do. I don't know how many videos are gonna be in the series, but I already know that this part is gonna take some time as well because I'm running on like 1.5 hours of sleep. Um, I'm fucking mad tired, but um, I'm gonna try to get through this as quickly as I'm able to get through it. Today we're gonna do the subclasses for the jobs. Why Square Enix decided that we needed basically another 70 something classes on top of the 35 that we already had. I have no idea. You just further complicated the game, but we're gonna get through it. So, yeah, to start off, the last video I said something about how these are just like kind of useless. These also have, um, these subclasses as well. But the only reason I said that they were practically useless is just because these affinities don't give you a lot, right? There might be something in here that's worth using, but it's like I really feel like these, if you're going to use the affinities for these, you're quite literally just trying to min max. Like that's all you're doing. So like you don't make a build off of these, right? You know, these aren't going to be your primaries or your secondaries. Maybe your tertiaries, maybe the fourth one's in line. Who knows? I mean, it really just depends on how deep you get into it. But there's so much shit going on right now with this that I'm about to be done with it. So I just want to fucking put this down so that people have an idea of what does what and maybe an idea of what you could do with it. So let's just get this out of the way. So for starters, these 10, all the basic classes, not going to use. So we don't got to worry about those. Warrior. Originally, it's a fierce roar that damages nearby enemies and gradually restores your MP for a period of time. Not bad. Then you have Dawn Warrior. Um, fills the break gauge activation, or fills the break gauge on activation, right? So, I mean, that's good. You know, if you're really trying to be um, frugal, I guess you could say, with your break gauge, this would help a lot. It's not too shabby. And then Warrior Shout, trigger the combo ability set to the after parry slot when pressing R2 after attacking. So instead of having to parry, you just do it, right? Whatever abilities in that slot, you just do it, right? That's fine, fair enough. Knight, temporarily causes successful guards to unleash a shockwave. Very basic. The evocation class change is increases the damage by the shockwaves, and a successful parry will increase the duration of this effect. So definitely focusing on the parrying function a little more, but it also increases damage of the shockwaves. So take that for what you will. Black Knight increases MP consumption and reduces the ability's duration, but the effect triggered of a successful parry can be triggered even with a soul shield. So if you parry with the soul shield, you still get the ability to come out, right? So not terribly useful, honestly. I mean, it's okay, I guess, but I mean, there's that's your trade-off. It takes more MP and reduces the duration of the ability, but you can do it with a soul shield. So if you want to make that trade-off, you have the option, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't seem very useful to me. I guess it depends on how you used it, but yeah, for me, not really something that I'm using. Berserker. Starts with Berserk, temporarily increased attack and decreases break damage taken. In addition, temporarily decreases the chance of being staggered and increases the chance of staggering enemies. So, very good all around for a melee build, right? You do more damage, you take less break damage, you increase the chance of staggering regular enemies, and you decrease the chance of you being staggered. Very good all around for a melee build. Desperado, you cannot be broken while this effect is active. So that means that even if your break gauge goes down to 1, it can't go past 1. You cannot be broken while you have it's now called fanaticism. So once you've used that for the duration that it lasts, you can't be broken. So again, very good, very good. Adrenaline, this is the one that I use. Reduces the effect's base duration, but allows it to be extended with each successful hit. In addition, it increases attack and decreases break damage taken. So this is kind of like pure all-out gung-ho, take the fight to him type shit, right? You keep at him, you keep getting, because every hit you're getting stagger, right? You've increased the chance to stagger him, which helps, and that stagger is what's going to allow you to continue to get attacks in. So the more you do that, the longer it lasts. So if you can really lay it on them, they will never be able to move, and you'll forever be in adrenaline mode, right? So very good. That's definitely the one that I like the most so far. Let's see. Thief, steal, dash forward, and steal an instant ability from the enemy. Abilities that can be stolen vary by enemy. Then you have the rogue. Occasionally acquire a potion when stealing. So, I mean, if you need potions, you have a chance to get a potion, I guess. Not great, but could be useful, I guess. And allows you to steal enemy buffs. So that could be really useful. There are quite a few enemies in the game that buff themselves, and this is very status effect-esque, right? If you were doing like a debuff build, you could add this in to increase your own buffs as well. So you could debuff them. Well, they would buff themselves. You steal their debuff, or you steal their buff, and then you debuff them, right? So, I mean, it could definitely work. There could be some real sinister shit you could probably do with that. It's not too bad. Let's see. Monk has focus. Hold R2 to recover HP and fill your break gauge at the cost of your MP. In addition, sustaining this ability long enough will also grant you a temporary increase in the amount of break damage dealt to enemies. So the longer you hold it, the greater a chance that you'll get to do break damage, or you'll get a bigger increase to the break damage that you do to enemies. With the evocation, charged attacks now have 4 possible stages. So instead of just charging up 3 times, you can now charge to 4, which I'm sure would further increase the amount of break damage that you dealt. So very good. The Ultima, called Brute Strength. While this ability is active, reduce the enemy's max break gauge with any attack. So this is super DPS shit, right? This is like very good. Okay, if you have a build that's focused around DPS but also doing break damage, this does just that. Okay, if you're hitting really fast, multiple hits at a time, and you're trying to drain break gauge, this is going to drain not just their break gauge but their max break gauge, and that shit doesn't recover, right? So you do it enough, or let's kick a scenario. Let's say you have a boss that has 2 health bars. You start the first health bar by chipping away at that break gauge. By the time it's ready to be broken using a soul burst, it will have like no break left. And if it's for some reason does recover from the second health bar, it will probably only go up back up to like a quarter or half. So you just got to keep chipping away at that. So it's a real easy way to chip away at bosses and knock those harder bosses out by just chipping away at their max break gauge. Very good. It's a very good subclass. I would recommend this one if you're into DPS. Okay, let's see. White Mage. You can unlock. You can use Raise, which is revive, basically life, right? Seer unlocks the spell Reincarnate, which revives the fallen ally and restores them to full health. Moreover, the next time the party member is knocked out, they will automatically revive. So this is full life and auto life in the same spell. Now, mind you, this spell costs like four bars of MP, But if you're able to get it off, it's full life and it's auto life on top of that. So you don't have to worry about continuously reviving them, so long as they're not being, you know, super reckless or anything, right? So very, very good. And then Alabaster Lord. Regenga, Protectga, Shellga, and Hastega can only be triggered while the casting gauge is full, but they will not consume MP. So there's your trade-off. You can only cast the max, the full version of it, right? But if you do, it doesn't cost you anything. I remember using this in co-op with my buddy, and man, the buffs, I just kept stacking the buffs. Man stayed buffed. You know, with all 4 of these, man stayed buffed. You know, so the only thing that I wish would be, the only thing about this that I wish kind of changed was that this effect was on Sage, right? So that I could just cast these spells on Sage and still get my sigils while I'm casting them. But unfortunately, it's only on White Mage, which is fine. This is pure support shit. I love playing a support on this in this game specifically. I can be a healer. That's no problem with me. And this is a very good class change effect to use if you're thinking about being a healer. And even if it's just like a second class that you're using, still very good. You can cast max level buffs at the cost of no MP, right? All it costs you is time at this point. So very good, very good. Black Mage, you get Flare, but using Flare will reduce your max MP. Dark Lord, the casting gauge will not deplete when not casting a spell. So it's like you start charging a spell, and then like say you have to dodge or you have to move out of the way. Wherever you stopped when you dodged or moved away, that's where you resume when you go back to doing it. So again, real good. You know, you don't have to, depending on where you stopped, you can get right back into it and potentially just hold the button down and, you know, get back, you know, you get back to your spell immediately. You don't lose any progress. It's very good. Warlock allows the use of Flare Star in the place of Flare. I don't know if Flare Star is any more powerful than Flare itself. Using the ability will reduce your max MP. So yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I'm sure there's got to be a growing difference between, not a growing difference, but a tangible difference. There we go. Between Flare Star and Flare. It must do like more damage or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. I've never really used this, but I have to imagine that Flare Star is better than Flare. So if you just want a better version of Flare, I mean, use Warlock, right? Red Mage. While R2 is active, using R2 will allow you to cast another spell consecutively. Only certain white and black magic spells can be cast this way. So you can chain spells together, which is cool, but it's only certain ones. Depends on how you use it. It could be good, but who knows. Marshall unlocks the ability Stun. Stun inflicts paralysis on an enemy, so I mean it's pretty self-explanatory. It inflicts paralysis, which could be mad useful depending on the enemy, depending on the boss. If the boss is not immune to stun, could be real life changing for you. And then Crimson Lord unlocks poison. These are like not fantastic. I guess they have their utility in some places, but I wouldn't recommend using like Red Mage as a class at all, because you know what this does, Sage does like 10 times better. You know, so maybe if like you want to dip your toe into Sage, but you don't have Sage, so you just have Red Mage, like you could use it like that, I suppose. But other than that, you know, once you have Sage, there's like no point to use this at all. You know, and even its affinity is not like great, right? I think we went over this the last time. Like it's not great. So, you know, I don't really see a whole lot of utility with Red Mage, especially after you get Sage. Let's see, Dragoon, you get Jump, leap high into the air, then descend quickly to piercing damage. Yeah, fine. Then hyper jump. It can now be activated while evading. In addition, it fills the brake gauge on activation. So very mobility heavy. You know, it's very good if you're worried about your mobility. This is pretty good for that, I guess. I'm not entirely sure about raw damage, how the output of that would be, but it definitely is good for mobility, right? And then boost jump strengthens the attack type, which would be piercing, and bypassing enemy resistances and making weaknesses easier to exploit. The greater the distance you jump, the more damage you will deal. I have to imagine there's like a set amount of distance that you can be before it maxes out. Um, I would imagine it says probably as far as you can lock away, or not lock away, lock on from them. So like as far away as you can be while still locked on, I would imagine that's like the distance. But yeah, I mean, I could see how this could be useful. If you're trying to make a build that exploits weaknesses and stuff like that. You know, some enemies have a kind of armor on, like the griffins, for instance. You really got to lay into them before they're weak to fucking anything, and so you break their armor off. But once you do, like they're weak, like all the time, right? So I can see it being used for something like that. Not too bad. Samurai. Oh boy, whatever that says. Let's see, Meikyo Shisui. I think that's how you say that. Temporarily increases MP recovery from normal attacks and restores MP when parrying. With an asterisk, this effect ends when staggered by enemy attack. Okay. I'm not too heavy into these like samurai ones, but I know that they are very good for like if you want to do chain cancels, if you want to do parries, you get a lot of reward for that kind of stuff, right? So, you know, I guess that's who that would be for, you know. And like I said, the more MP that you can get without having to, you know, do specifically configure equipment effects to give you more MP on hit or on block or whatever, is always really good. Then you have Genji. Chain canceling restores MP while this ability is active. So like I said, whatever chain canceling is, I think I know what chain canceling is, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't think I've ever chain canceled in the entire time that I've played this game. So, I mean, I don't really know what it is, but I know that it's an effective enough technique that it will give you MP back while this ability is active. So, if you chain cancel a lot, this is for you. And then Shishi Funjin, or Funjin, I should probably say. Increases the MP consumed, but nullifies damage taken when the effect is canceled by an enemy attack. So it basically gives you, it takes more MP, but it gives you a shield of sorts that says, okay, this one attack is nullified. So if you're just trying to go in and go ham, and not have to worry about repercussions of getting staggered or knocked back or killed even, then this could be good for that, right? Evoker. So Evoker, you call forth the spirit and you use L2 plus the face buttons to issue orders to it. The spirit will fight until its HP gauge runs out or until you hold R2 to unsummon it. I don't really think this is a good class, like at all. I mean, it just doesn't seem very cool. You know, it doesn't seem very good, but we'll get into it. So that's Evoker, and then you have Conjurer. It fills the break gauge and activation of your spirit's recovery effect. So you have to make the spirit thing use the recovery effect, and it will not only heal you, but refill your break gauge. So could be useful. Just depends on how you're using it, because it's all completely utility. But, I mean, it could be useful. And then Arcanist. Increases the shockwave's power and causes enemies broken or brought to 0 HP by the attack to be finished with a soul burst. Again, I couldn't really speak to what kind of utility this presents. just because I don't use Evoker. I used it one time just to try it out, and I hated it. I don't like this class at all. So anybody out there who uses Evoker, who knows how Enigma Arcana works, and what way you can use it that it will help out, please feel free to let me know, because I have no idea. But that's what it is. Hunter, you get analyzed, increases physical attribute damage dealt each time a hit is, or each time an enemy is hit, bypassing enemy resistances and making weaknesses easier to exploit. This buff stacks up to 50 times. So if you're really into like status effect shit, I really feel like the gun classes do that really well, because they have just these incredible stacks that happen with them. But Machinist, now the buff stacks up to 99 times. And then Gunslinger, you gain 50 stacks of the buff. However, the buff will end after being hit by an enemy attack. So the only thing that I can think of for this one is that the 50 stacks of the buff are stronger, but they end if you get hit. That's the only thing that I can say, because they don't really clarify it here. But at face value, just looking at it, it just looks like, okay, it's the same thing, but now it's like it added a debuff onto it. You know, if you get hit, then you have to start all over, and that's like shitty. No one wants to have to deal with that. So it has to be something, like there has to be something going on with the buff that empowers it or enhances it in some way that makes it worth staying back away from enemies and continuing to build up those stacks, right? That's like the only thing that comes to mind when I think of that. I don't really use Hunter or the gun classes really either. I don't like how guns work in this game. But yeah, that's got to be what that is. Dark Knight starts with Soul Eater, consumes HP to deal additional dark damage when attacking. This damage bonus is proportional to the amount of HP consumed. You can toggle this effect on and off with R2. MP gradually depletes while it's active. So the more health that this takes from you, the more damage that you do, basically. So if you want even more damage, then, you know, this just works in tandem with, you know, like this stuff. Increases damage dealt when near death, that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know if this can kill you. It might be a thing where it just like caps out at 1 HP and then it like goes away and you can't use it anymore. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't tested that. But yeah, I mean, the more, if you start at full health and you have this active and you have enough P to keep it active until you know, it goes down to the very last bits of health that you have, I can only imagine the amount of damage that you'll be doing. But you'll be prone to dying very quickly if you're not careful. So high risk, high reward type shit, you know. Let's see. And War Mage, while active, it temporarily increases the additional damage dealt and reduces HP consumed with that max HP. So if it's a trade-off. You have to be at max HP, but if you are, it will temporarily increase the additional damage dealt, and the HP that is consumed will be reduced. So pretty decent, but you have to be at max HP, you know. But again, this is like just what I was saying. Like if you're already at max HP and you have the build necessary to make it to where you keep getting MP and you're never running out of MP, this could be really useful. Again, more high risk, high reward shit. It just has to be set up correctly, right? And then Abyss Knight refills your break gauge when attacking an enemy vulnerable to darkness. So very specific requirements in order to refill the break gauge. But most beginner to mid game enemies are vulnerable to darkness. There's only a certain few amount of enemies that aren't vulnerable to darkness. Flan aren't really vulnerable to darkness. I think like the unicorns and the skeletons are not vulnerable to darkness, so it wouldn't really work against them. But almost anything else, probably tomberries as well, aren't very vulnerable to darkness. But you know, so you would have to use it against very specific enemies, and very specific bosses on top of that. But refilling the break gauge when attacking is always a plus because you never want that break gauge to drain. You know, you never want to give him free damage. Paladin, recover HP when landing a hit. Deals additional holy damage based on max HP when HP is at max. You can toggle this effect on and off. Very regen-esque shit. You know, if you wanted to do something akin to a vampire build, this would be the class for that. Royal Guard restores MP when attacking an enemy vulnerable to holy. So not only are you recovering HP, you're recovering MP as well, as long as they're vulnerable to holy. So all the aforementioned monsters that I just named that were not vulnerable to dark will be vulnerable to holy. And so you just gain MP when you attack them with this, right? So very situational, but useful in the right circumstances. And then Holy Knight, while active, temporarily increases additional damage dealt and HP recovery when near death. Very, very last resort type shit. If you're really down on your luck and you've got 1 bar of MP left, you have this class on, you better be using that bar of MP and you better be going to town, not getting hit or any of that other kinds of stuff, because you fuck up and you're dead, but you don't fuck up and you get like a second chance, you know. And so like this is really good as a contingency for when you don't have any more potions or anything to use and your allies are dead and it's just you and this boss that has less than a 16% of its fucking total health. Like this is really last resort contingency plan B type shit, right? So not too bad. Ninjutsu. Unleash a chosen ninjutsu ability with various effects. Ninja tools will be expended on activation. They can be restocked at cubes. So you only get a set amount of these, but they do different things. I don't know exactly what they do. Excuse me. I would have to imagine though that there's probably some debuffs on them, probably some elemental damage on them, something akin to that kind of stuff. So like not bad, you know, it's just an extra thing, an extra resource that they basically give you, that you will have to manage as well. Then you have Fuma Ninja. Hitting an enemy with a ninjutsu ability of an element, fire, wind, water, or earth, that is vulnerable to it, will trigger an additional attack. So if they're vulnerable to fire and you hit them with it, it hits them twice. Right? Pretty easy to understand. Not too bad. And then Shadow Master. Receive a set amount of ninja tools when inflicting the enemy with a status ailment. I don't really know what that set amount is. I can't imagine it'd be a lot, but maybe 2, 3 per infliction. Could be useful if you're running a status effect build. They're very viable, but again, like status effects are very viable, but it depends on the enemy themselves, right? Some enemies are just not going to be they're just going to be immune to whatever it is, whether that be stun or poison or curse or whatever. Like they're just going to be immune to it. So this is a very situational type thing, but it could work depending on the enemy, right? Depending on the boss. Assassin. Assassinate. Deal damage based on the number of marks on an enemy. Land a critical hit to mark an enemy. So this is more DPS stuff that I was talking about. I do like this class. This is probably the only green class that I actually like. I like Monk too, but it's not something I would use. Let's see. Ravager. When chain canceling, which I still don't know how to do, automatically cast Requiem without consuming HP. So Requiem is just the change name for this skill. So when you chain cancel and you use it, it will automatically cast it when without consuming any HP or any MP. Sorry. So you know, you do enough chain cancels, you constantly have chain canceling in mind when you want to use this move. You'll never have to use MP for it. So not too bad. And then Phantom, when triggered with no marks present, You will unleash a shockwave in the surrounding area that marks any enemies that it touches. So, if you use this, let's say you mark them and then you use it. Well, that will just trigger the marks. And it'll continue to, and it'll just do the critical hits from the marks like that. But if you don't have any marks and you use it, then it will unleash a shockwave that if it hits them, it will mark them. And then you can just go from there to continue to add marks, or you can just trigger it right away, and maybe it does a little bit more damage from being from this effect specifically, or maybe not. Maybe it just helps you get started with it. I don't know. Very situational, but could be good. Could be good. Liberator gives you a mighty guard. Create an area around yourself that decreases damage taken by any allies within the circle, the area, and gradually restores their HP. You can toggle it on and off. So you want your co-op buddies to stick close to you while you're using this, and it'll cast regen on them and decrease the amount damage taken from them. So pretty good. Heroic Guard. This ability will now affect allies outside of the effect as well. So as long as you have it active, it will affect them, which is really good. And then Cosmic Crater. While active, the break gauge will gradually deplete in place of MP. So this could be useful if you're trying to build MP first, but you still want to use the guard. And like I said, it can be triggered off and on. Plus, your break gauge regenerates. So if you're trying to build MP, but you still want to be able to use this, so long as your co-op buddies are next to you, they'll get the aforementioned effects, and you won't be losing MP. You can continue to build your MP and just drain your break gauge, which regenerates anyway. And if you have it built to where your break gauge regenerates faster, hey, you get to use it all the more, right? So that's great. That's pretty good for what it's supposed to do. Breaker. Zantatsuken. Slashes through enemies with a giant blade. Enemies broken are brought to 0 HP by this attack will be finished with a soul burst. You can hold it to charge it. The longer you charge, the more powerful the slash. I really like this one. It's really fun to use on bosses that don't have your aggro, or that you don't have their aggro. Especially charging up to level 3. Really good. Then you have Barbarian. Increases the area effect of this attack, just makes it a wider swing. And then Warden. Charge attacks now have 4 possible stages. So instead of 3, you go to 4, and the 4th one does monstrous break damage. Monstrous just break damage. You know, if you've got it set up right, I have to imagine that some kind of way, if it's not like a one-shot break thing, it's a fucking hefty chunk of break if you have the right stuff on your build, right? It's got to be. So, you know, I think this is really good as well. You have Void Knight, which has Runic. It deploys an arcane circle and raises your guard. Magic attacks taken while guarding will be absorbed by the circle. While the arcane circle is active, you can release R2 after being hit by magic to recover MP, or to unleash a slash attack that dispels all the enemy's buffs by pressing R1. So if you hit R2, you recover the MP. If you hit R1, it will dispel all their buffs, all the enemy's buffs. Actions will be strengthened based on the amount of magic absorbed. So if you only absorb a little bit of magic, it won't be that much, right? Like if you try to recover MP, you won't recover that much. But if you sat in that circle for a minute and absorbed a lot of spells and then recovered MP, you'd get a lot back. So it's very time based. It's very determinant upon how long you're willing to sit there and deal with magical enemies in that manner. But it could be good, I guess. And then there's Rune Knight. Oh man, I wish I could scroll. It does it automatically, so let's see. All right. Automatically grants the effects of shell to all party members when recovering MP. So the moment you recover MP from the circle, it will cast shell on everybody. So that's good. And then Imperial Knight gives you Rune Drive. And Rune Drive, when landing a slash attack, inflict the enemy with a debuff that increases elemental damage taken. So could be pretty good with a co-op buddy that's using a lot of black magic. Could be real good with for that, you know. These are all just kind of like setup things that you would have to do with. They would be done better in co-op. I'm sure your AI companions could do them if they decide to not act stupid and actually fight the the enemies. But I mean, yeah, it's very co-op dependent. I would say very co-op dependent class for maximizing the effect of this ability. Then you have Tyrant. Imbue your weapon with a chosen element. So that's fire, water, wind, or earth. Then you have Lunarian. Allows use of Enluna in place of Endark. Enluna consumes MP with every attack and restores HP. Stacks with other enchantments. So this is something akin to what Paladin had, where you restore HP, but you have to have this buff on in order to use it. And then Magitech Knight allows the use of Magic in place of Unholy. And Magic consumes MP with every attack, but also reduces the enemy's maximum break gauge. So also something akin to what Monk had, where it's just a buff that you put on, but you can reduce the enemy's max break gauge with every subsequent attack. So definitely pretty decent. They have Sage, my favorite class. You get the Sizzle, obviously. Archwizard, you unlock the spell Raise, or you unlock the spell Meteor. Raise is ultimately going to be much better than Meteor because Meteor takes away your MP. And you don't ever want to be... What's the point of using a magic class if every time you build up to use the main like super damaging spell, it's going to take away your MP? Like, there's no point in that. So just use Raise, right? Just be able to have that option, because more likely than not, you're going to be trying to do, when you're doing White Mage Sizzles, you're going to be doing buffs and healing and all that kind of stuff. You might use Dia every now and again, but other than that, you're going to be buffing, so you might as well just have Raise, right? Then you have Summoner. Summoner allows you to summon Bahamut, and while he's active, not only your MP and your max MP are slowly consumed after a certain amount of time, or after a certain amount of your maximum MP has been consumed. You can hold R2 to unleash a Mega Flare. Enemies brought to 0 with that will be finished with a Soul Burst. That's fine, I guess. I haven't really tested this one out very much, but there's a lot of sustained MP costs with this. And so I only see it being very useful if the other class on your build supplements it by being able to gain a lot of max HP really quickly, and then you go into Summoner. Maybe then I can understand why somebody would use this. But with only 2 bars or 3 bars, it's like not worth it, right? So this one again is very setup based. You have to have shit set in place for this to be effective for the most part. So that, yeah, I mean, Demonologist. Oh my god, these descriptions are just so long. I wait for it to scroll. I wish I could scroll this. This would be so much easier. Let's see. Ooh. Oh, excuse me. A successful Soul Shield reduces the time needed before Mega Flare can be activated. So less time to be able to use Mega Flare if you keep using Soul Shield. And then High Summoner. I think this makes it to where he just casts Ultima instead of Mega Flare. Let's see. Press R2 after activating. Let's see. Press R2 after activating a combo ability to unleash consecutive flare breaths. Okay. Sure. Could be useful. Like I said, this is all sustained MP cost. So you have to have a lot of MP in the first place to even use this effectively. So unless you have a build that's focused on making sure you have max H or max MP, then this isn't that useful, honestly. Gambler is shit, and we're just gonna leave it at that, right? Gambler's just shit. This is dumb. It's an entire job based around luck, and luck serves no purpose other than this class. So Gambler, you get the roulette. There's two abilities that are chosen at random. However, there's a chance that no abilities will be chosen, and that temporarily disables the roulette. A higher luck will decrease the chance of the roulette being disabled, and abilities from jobs with higher affinities are more likely to be chosen. So this is absolutely a tertiary affinity that you want to have on, if at all, like, because it's all dependent upon the primary and secondary affinities that you already have. That's where that's what fills the pool of abilities that you're allowed to use, right? And the higher the affinity for those jobs, the greater the chance that you'll get an ability from that job, right? But there's also the chance that you'll get nothing, which leaves you shut down and leaves this roulette skill in a cooldown, and you don't get to use it until it's done. So why am I wasting a fucking slot on this class? Right? Like, why? Why? You want to always be able to use your shit. Always want to be able to use your main job abilities. And when this one says, okay, well, here's the chance because we're playing Russian roulette, you know, quite literally, then yeah, I mean, it's like it's fucking stupid. You know, unless your luck is maxed out at like 200 or something, I do not see a purpose for this. I just don't. It's a waste of a fucking slot. It really is. But anyway, Corsair adds the ability Renew to roulette. Renew grants the following effects to all party members. It can fully restore the HP. It can cure all status ailments and revive any fallen party members. It can refill the potions. Or it can refill the potions. So it can do one of those three things should you hit Renew. Which is just added to the pool of abilities that could be cast, right? And then Trickster. Add the ability to end the roulette. Or adds the ability The End to roulette. The End has the following effects. And you get a stat bonus depending on the amount of luck that you have. Unleash an area attack that deals high break damage. Enemies broken or brought to zero will be finished with a soul burst. That's it. So you have a chance. You have a chance to get that. You have a chance to get that ability, and if that ability comes out, then it does a lot of break damage. So that one, there's some utility for it. I can see it. But just Gambler as a class, as a job, as a whole, it's just I don't know. You got to be on to something, I think, to be able to justify using this. You have to be. It's something far beyond my pay grade that I just don't know about. But you definitely got to be on to something for this, you know. Yeah. And then finally, Cyclic Warrior. You can attack with one of the four elements. Using this ability will reduce your max MP, which again, you don't ever want to continue to reduce max HP. You just don't want to do that. You spent all this time building it up just to tear it back down. It's fucking redundant. It's stupid. But anyways, Primal Warrior automatically grants the effects of Lightbringer when this ability is activated. So whatever effects that you have with Lightbringer, whether that's increased defense, whether that's increased attack speed, whether that's increased duration, any of that will be automatically granted when you use this ability. And then Apocalypse Warrior will trigger additional attacks after inflicting invulnerability on a foe with Light's End, which is the name of the skill there. So it will just give you more attacks after inflicting vulnerability on somebody. So yeah, that is all the classes other than the basic classes. If you really wanted to, um, yeah, if you really wanted to use these, I guess you could, but I don't recommend it just because like they're not doing anything that I can see that's like really, really useful, honestly. So yeah, that is all the subclasses, and hopefully that gave you a better idea as to what you could use and what you could do and how you can continue to shape these builds that you're trying to make. It's very interesting to see like how in depth this game is for a spinoff. There's just so much more that we have to go over, and there's just so much more that we have to get ingrained within ourselves to be able to do. But until that time, I will leave you with this video. I hope you enjoyed. Later.